welcome to Metal Wani. It's a very special day because we have three prog heads on call right now. Myself, Mr. Dave Meros of SPOCK'S, and my good buddy Sandra as well. How are you doing, sir?
Good. How are you guys?
Doing good. Doing really
Pretty
good. Now, just a few weeks are left for the release of SPOCK'S highly anticipated album, The Oblivion Particle. Now, always comes a day when you guys have to, the release date comes closer. So how excited and nervous is the band feeling right now?
Well, not really. I'm excited, but not nervous. It seems, we've been around a long time, and it seems to kind of have the same result each time. So I'm hoping that it's the same or better. But whatever happens, happens. I'm not going to get nervous about it.
That sounds really good. Minion came out, a lyric video was made out of it, and what I've heard so far in terms of how the different radio stations who play prog it's been on loop. It's great to see that the song's getting a lot of exposure. But for you guys, have you guys, captured any sort of a response you've got from fans?
Yeah, everything's been really positive so far, and we're really happy about that. I hope that the album is as well received as our last one. And yeah, sure. We're looking forward to doing the tour in September as well.
Wow, that's awesome.
So, after more than 20 years together and now 12 albums, do you find that being so well known for your progressive rock sound limits your stylistic options, or do you just write what sounds good without too much regard for genre parameters or even fan expectation?
That's a good question. It's kind of a combination of both. We have been chastised in the past for being a little bit too diverse. Like, for example, writing a 3-minute rock song that's not prog at all. The progs hate that with a passion. And so we try not to do that anymore, that type of thing. We try to keep it consistent within what people expect us to do. But progressive rock is fairly open. We tend to get a lot of different styles packed into what we do. So even though we can't really write, maybe a straight rock song, we can still put that kind of thing into a progressive framework. Right. So, we can still be very diverse while still giving the people what they think SPOCK'S Beard should sound like.
That's great, yeah. And for anyone who listens to your music for the first time, it's nice to feel a sense of familiarity. Do you create this element of having listeners instantly relate to your music intentionally?
No, but that's great. I think we all grew up listening to really good pop and rock music, and that's kind of deeply rooted in all of us. And, all of us really insist on having hooks and having a melody and not being too weird or too concerned about shredding all the time or complexity. And, we get as complex as we feel the song needs, but we try not to make it hard to listen to.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whether it's a song like Minion or my personal favorite, Centerline, this album is such an emotional and flowing trek, beyond the music. The instruments and vocals are a perfect pairing in the sense, evoking a lot of emotion, and I think that's a lot of what prog is as a genre. It's about artistry as well as the sound. Do you agree with that? Is that something you keep in mind consciously when writing?
Yeah, I totally agree with that, especially the evoking of emotions part of it. I think if something doesn't hit you on an emotional level, it doesn't have to be a deep, dark, complex emotion. It could just be as simple as fun or happiness or sadness and longing or something like that. But that's what music, that's how people connect to music. And I think people are losing that a lot. We try to always have that in mind, and it doesn't have to be lyrical either. It could be, a guitar riff that's just so sad, or a drum beat that's really happy or something, or
Okay.
fun. I mean, fun is really important too.
Yeah. No, that's great.
Definitely. I mean, even with the complex parts, which are insanely mind-boggling. I mean, when we talk about prog music, it's just not about technical wankery. I mean, you guys place these parts properly in terms of structure, in terms of arrangement. It's great to see the effort that's put in to make sure that things are placed. I mean, everything seems to come at the right time. So, was there something which came out naturally when you guys were working on these songs, or it was like, took a lot of time to figure out where to place what?
Well, I think it probably took a lot of time. We don't write as a group.
Hmm.
We write individually, and then when it's time to record an album, everyone submits the songs that they have written,
Hmm.
and we make minor changes to the songs, but a lot of the time the demos that each person has recorded is fairly complete, and a lot of time does go into writing. If something doesn't work, you have to go back and rewrite it, and
Right.
there's a lot of rewriting and taking apart and eliminating things and adding new things, and it's a pretty painful process sometimes.
Yeah, I do definitely get that. I mean, in terms of the concept, I mean, is this album a concept base? Is this something where you guys plan to tell a story in the form of, let's say, some characters? As we talk about, like when I think of an album like Snow, which was more like a journey altogether, is it something which has a story, a flow, a concept for fans to basically make a journey out of it?
Well, we started off with that not in mind at all. It
Hmm.
was just going to be an album of separate songs,
Right.
but a little tiny bit of a theme kind of emerged after it was all done.
Okay.
Uh, we uh, we were trying to think of an album title, and we were going to originally call it "The Kings of Oblivion."
Hmm.
We did a web search, and there's a pretty popular album from the '70s called "The Kings of Oblivion." So we decided we didn't want to copy that.
Hmm.
So, but we liked the word oblivion, so we thought of 100 different ways to use that word, and Oblivion Particle kind of, we all liked that one, so we used it. And then John had written a song called Bennett Builds a Time Machine,
Hmm.
where there's an inventor named Bennett Lamb who is kind of this crazy guy. We don't know if he really invented anything or if it's all in his mind, but that is about kind of invention, and then we kind of tied, well, what if we tie that in with this same guy discovering the Oblivion Particle?
Hmm.
And then there's another song called A Better Way to Fly, which is really not about invention, but it can be tied in with that. So there's a little bit of kind of invention in a sort of a theme for a few of the songs. It's pretty loose, but it's there.
It sounds good because when I look at the album cover, it is it Bennett in there building a time machine because I kind of relate the music and basically like you display explain the concept that the album cover somehow relates to the music that you guys have created.
Yeah, that's him. He's in his little shack behind the house and working on things. And the picture is actually, there's the little light that's shrouded by a cloth over that. That is supposed to be the Oblivion Particle that he's just discovered.
Oh, that's cool. Now,
Yeah.
as a bassist, I mean, in any band, let's take in general, it's always about hanging around for a rhythm section of, let's say, basically follow up what the guitarist is going. But when I think of a band like SPOCK'S Beard with you, the mastermind, taking a lead role, creating those insanely awesome textures, complementing everything which the guys, are doing. I mean, how do you manage to do that? I mean, it's definitely a challenging job for basically a songwriter and a bassist in general to come up with such parts and basically shine out, not just be all over the place.
Well, it's just primarily the band. I mean, I kind of wanted to do something like this with a crazy tone and playing cool parts, my whole life. But normally in most bands, if you tried that, you'd be instantly fired. I mean, it's
Okay.
not really acceptable. I'm really uh, a strong proponent of, if you're a bass player, you play bass. I mean, if you want to be a guitar player or a keyboard player, then you play those instruments. But Spock's Beard kind of crosses a line a little bit, where bass is kind of expected to do a little bit more. And, the bass parts, a lot of those, I mean, I'll be honest, the songwriter, whoever writes the song, will write the bass part.
Right.
And I just kind of I follow it fairly closely. If I have some other ideas, I'll ask, what if I try this instead? And sometimes they say yes, and sometimes they say no, play it like I wrote it, so. But yeah, I mean, I do write some of the parts that I play, and some of them a lot of them actually are written by the songwriter. And we've kind of, over the years, developed kind of a style that everyone that writes songs for Spock's Beard kind of knows what each person in the band should be doing, so it's like, I have to write a part that Dave's going to like to play, or I'm going to have to write a part that is, really showcases Jimmy's talent, or, so we're all kind of tuned to what each other likes to do, and so, each of our parts kind of reflect that.
It's like working together and to make sure that each part, a songwriter is writing, let's say each member is writing, shines out, so that there's a balance in terms of what's exactly happening on the song.
Yeah, it's, I got to give a lot of credit to our mixing engineer, Rich Mauser, too, because we give him, by the time we're ready to mix, we'll have, I don't know, 70 or 80 tracks, and he has to somehow make everything
out of it
stand out, and create definition between the instruments, and learn how to create that balance. And he does. I mean, I don't envy his job. It's really, our arrangements have become denser and denser with each album. I listen back to some of our early albums, and it's like, hey, this is crazy. There's like one guitar part and maybe two keyboard parts, and everything's really simple and spacious, and
right.
We don't do it like that anymore.
That's definitely true.
Yeah, it's definitely hard to, for any mixer, any band, it's definitely hard to find that balance. But on this album, I really do like how you can hear all the different parts. It's very crisp, especially because a lot of the time the bass is very hidden, and that drives me crazy. But for you, I mean, as a bass player, getting back to that, Yes bassist Chris Squire was a huge influence to progressive musicians everywhere for decades, and obviously his recent passing was clearly a blow to fans. How influential was he to you as an accomplished progressive bass player?
Oh, he was, one of a kind. I mean, really, really influential. He's one of the many guys. I have a lot of different bass heroes. And as far as progressive rock, he kind of took that whole style of playing, he created it really, and then took it to a level that, I'll still listen to things that he's played and just marvel at his imagination. Not just his playing, but his musical imagination. He wrote these bass parts that were extremely artistic and had just so much feeling in them, and that's a lot of what made him as great as he was.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. As a composer in general, do you find something meditative or pleasing about the music that you create? I mean, what's it been like over the years, sort of reflecting on past albums? Do you notice any changes over the discography at all?
Well, as far as me being a songwriter, I haven't really done any of that in the last couple of years. I kind of lost my mojo as far as that's concerned. But when I was writing a lot, it was very, I don't know, I almost used the word painful. I'm not one of these guys that musical ideas just flow out of, like Neil Morse maybe, but I have to sit down and really, really work on stuff and just labor over it. I mean, it's like having a baby almost. It's just crazy. And I think our songwriting as a group, it just kind of comes out and it shifts around. I mean, some albums somebody will write more than other people, and then the next album somebody else will have the majority of the writing. And this time, on this album, John Bighold, our guy we've been collaborating with for many years, he wrote a lot of the songs on this album. He wrote the majority of the material.
Cool. Yeah.
Sounds great. Now, Dave, you'd be touring Europe in September with I don't know how to pronounce him. Synthestia? I don't know. What's the band name?
I'm not sure either. I think it's Synesthesia.
Yeah, Synesthesia and Special Providence as well. So plans, what are the plans of playing the new tracks live in terms of probably, give them a sort of vibe on stage, because that's where the magic happens when you guys play these new tunes live.
Yeah, we'll be playing not all of the album, but we'll be playing a lot of it. I think we have, I don't really remember right now, 5 or 6 songs off of the album. So, yeah, it's always fun to do the new stuff. It's not fun on the lead up to it, though. I mean, right now I'm stressing out pretty hard. It's like, I can't learn this song. I'll have to go over it about 100 times, Especially we were talking about the bass parts and the songwriters writing the bass parts. There's a couple songs that were written, the bass part was written on the computer.
Okay.
So there are big stretches of a couple songs that are almost like random note sequences. It's like, how are you supposed to remember that? You just have to go back and learn one little bar at a time. Okay, I got that. Now what's the next one? And it's like, what's going on here? How can I learn this? How can I?
That's right.
So it's just repetition. Right now is the painful period.
Yeah.
In a couple of weeks, it'll be like, hey, what was so hard about that? This is easy.
Definitely. Any plans of touring states? Because I'm sure a lot of prog fans around states are waiting for you. Of course, Sandra is waiting for you guys in Toronto.
Oh yeah.
Yes, I am.
we just did a couple gigs in Canada, but it was farther east. We played at Quebec and Quebec City. Quebec City and Montreal. We only have one U.S. date scheduled right now, and that's pretty far from Toronto. We're playing in Los Angeles on August 29th, and that's going to be kind of a kickoff for the tour. Then our tour starts in Europe on the 15th of September. But yeah, hopefully, we get dates that fill in every once in a while. It's really hard for us to plan a full tour in the States because of logistics and how money factors into touring.
Right.
That whole thing is kind of difficult for us to do. But we do get the one-off gigs, prog festivals and little special things that come up. I wish we could play more than the States, but maybe someday.
Yeah, sounds good. I'm here, sitting here in India, waiting for you guys to come. I don't know when is that going to happen. So, probably might be a stupid question to ask. So, possible to see you guys live in India down the way?
Wow, that would be great. I don't know if it will ever happen. It's all about getting an offer.
Right. That's true.
We don't really decide where we play. We just kind of go. It's like, we got this offer. Does it make sense? And well, usually it's like, hey, we got this offer for India, woohoo! And we're all excited. And then it's like, does it make sense? And it's like, oh, well, no, sorry, Yeah. Actually, to be honest, I think we got one offer for India one time.
Wow.
It was about a year, between 1 and 2 years ago.
Okay.
And we really wanted to do it, but it was right when something else was going to happen. And we kind of had to choose.
Wow.
Yeah, so we were already kind of committed to something else, and it was like, oh. And I think Neil went down there and played.
Yeah, Neil played with his Neil Morse band with Mike Portnoy, I think in December 2013.
Yeah.
Yeah, I missed it by, I don't know, I reached the airport and just to find out that they'd already taken a flight back home. So
yeah.
That was crazy. Nonetheless, hopefully down the line you guys can come over here and play for you. So Dave, always an honor having a chat with you. So before I conclude, how about you define the Oblivion Particle in just one sentence?
artistic. I think, let's see, it's great. It's the best thing that's ever been recorded in the history of popular music.
Popular music, would that be prog?
Well, I guess modern music, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
Best album ever recorded, and everyone should buy it.
Wow, that's a solid statement. Tell you something, Dave. Very few people have guts to say this. Let me tell you that. And kudos to you.
I like to dream is what the thing is.
Definitely. Thanks, Dave. An honor having a chat with you. I'm sure even Sandra had a great time, having a chat.
I did. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. It was my pleasure.